All right, everyone. Thank you so much for coming. Thanks for joining us for today's talk, Growing Your Entrepreneurial Ministry or Spiritual Direction Practice. I am Reverend Carrie Kopnick, and I am the ChI Community Minister. We're so glad that you've joined us. ChI Talks is a monthly event that explores the facets of spirituality through an interfaith lens here with the ChI Interfaith community. Join us every month on the third Tuesday at 4 p.m. You can also see a pretty extensive playlist on YouTube now of past ChI Talks. We are recording our session today, so if you wish not to be on camera, please turn off your video and your image won't appear in the recording. Note too that we will have time at the end for questions about today's topic or about the Chaplaincy Institute if you're interested in learning more there. A little bit about ChI, the Chaplaincy Institute. We provide education for those seeking to serve in hospitals, hospices, disasters, prisons, corporations, the military, for activists, and in environmental contexts. ChI trains spiritual leaders to serve as spiritual companions in our Spiritual Direction Certificate Program. And we are excited and hope to be launching a new movement ministry training called Sacred Justice Ministry, tending the spiritual needs of our diverse justice movements. We are the oldest and most respected interfaith seminary in the United States. Our ordination or faith group endorsement is recognized by the Association of Professional Chaplains, the Veterans Administration, and the military. And I'm so appreciative that you joined us today. Let me take a moment to welcome Susie Idzik, our speaker today. Thanks so much for being here with us today, Susie. Let me share a little bit about her with the gathered group. Susie has had a spiritual direction practice for the last 15 years and has been a coach for the last 25. Additionally, she's run a few other small businesses. Susie teaches beautifully the marketing your practice in the spiritual direction module here at ChI. And she has, and we'll have an ongoing marketing group, one that's launching in October. So thanks so much for being here with us today, Susie. Yeah. As people are continuing to hop in, I'm going to invite you to pop into the chat what brings you here today. Do you have a spiritual direction practice, other kinds of entrepreneurial ministry? What is your work? And then as we do that, since we are here together and our togetherness makes this sacred space, let's take just a moment to light a candle. Remind ourselves that the divine is with us here, always with us. A couple of good big breaths. What a joy it is to be together. Thank you. All right, Susie, turning it over to you. Thanks so much.
Great. Thank you so much, Carrie. And it's so great to be here with all of you today. Thank you for coming and checking this out. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to talk for about 20 minutes or so. As I'm sure you can all imagine, marketing your practice or ministry is a much bigger topic that can be covered in this short little window, but hopefully I can give you some things to sort of think about and chew on, and that might help to move your own marketing forward. Because I have found that marketing ministry is different than marketing other things. And it feels to me really important that we pay attention in a different way to what we are marketing and how we are marketing this work, because it is work of the soul and of the heart. And we are not selling widgets and gadgets and koozie donks. So it's a little bit different. We are selling relationship. We are selling deepening. We are selling, I can't even believe I just said the word selling a few times there. We are giving opportunities for people to explore their deepest selves and deepest souls, or to connect in ways that they don't get to connect in the rest of the world, whether we're performing a wedding or we're doing deep soul work or whatever we're doing. It's different than other marketing. So our approach needs to be a little bit different, and our approach needs to be really customized to who we are and to what our ministry looks like. And that to me is really important. The overarching message I would like you to get is that there is no right way to market this. And at the same time, there are lots of ways to market this. And in that, not to get overwhelmed by the quantity of ways we can market. I mean, we are in such a hyper capitalistic marketing time, even our ways of decompressing. If you're a phone person and you're scrolling through Instagram or Facebook, it feels like everybody's trying to sell something. I know I get overwhelmed, and sometimes I can even feel a little paralyzed by what I see other people doing. So the key is to figure out what is your path in marketing? What is your path in what works best for who you are and how you show up in the world? And not to judge yourself by what you're seeing out there that other people are doing. Really judge yourself by what is resonating for you. And importantly is to market yourself, who you are and what your gifts are, what you're really bringing to this world. If it's spiritual direction, how do you market that with you as the spiritual director, that sort of package? But it's really important that we don't hide our gifts, that we don't hide what we are here to offer the world, because we can't get the package of marketing right. Just be out there with who you are and show up authentically with your true heart showing. And that is the magic of what you need to do in this marketing piece. Share it generously. And know also in that your gifts won't be for everyone to receive. So I have learned over the years that I don't market to just anybody. I need to feel safe in who I'm talking to and who I'm sharing my work with, because some people, I'm sure you know I'm sure you may have experienced this as you tell people about what you do. Some people are not interested or want to be combative about it. I live in Silicon Valley. People want to poke holes in everything I say. So I have learned that I have to be cautious and protective of my own heart when I share my work, because my work is deeply a deep part of me. And so I have to protect myself. And so that's, to me, part of not getting caught up in the marketing mania, is to also protect myself and my gifts and my work. I do have some slides that I'm going to share just for those of you who like to process things that way. You can also just listen. It's all very, it is just what it is. I don't know what to say further about that, but that's where we'll go with that. Okay, let me just make them nice and big for you. So what's really important to me in sharing this is your compelling story. Each one of you in this group, and anybody listening after, you're going to have your own story that makes you the minister and spiritual director that you are. What have you done in your life, and what in your lived experience creates your compelling story? If you are someone who is passionate about poetry, if you are a dream worker, if Enneagram is your path to spiritual life, whatever that might be, if you're a previous therapist who has come to this work, if you're a previous engineer who has come to this work, make sure that all of you is showing up in your marketing. Don't hide those other parts of you because now you're doing spiritual direction. Our path to ministry is not a reset of everything. It's we bring all of ourselves with us. I got confused. So make sure that your compelling story is there. And I like to say, don't confuse the modality of spiritual direction or ministry with your story. So if you find yourself explaining only what spiritual direction is without bringing yourself to the conversation, then you might be missing a golden moment. People who want to work with you will want to work with you because they want more of how they see you in their life. If they see wisdom, calm, a connectability, whatever that is that they see, they want more of that in their life. And they may want more of you. You may be the compelling person, and that's great too. But often we choose people who have something that we want more of. So don't get caught only in saying, and I know I fell into this all the time in the beginning about spiritual direction is blah, 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 blah. And then I am blah, blah, blah. And the two weren't connecting. So I have been working over the years on how do I merge those two things together? How do I merge that I'm the mom of 3 adult kids and a artist and really connected with the Enneagram and a spiritual director and becoming a minister and have been working in congregations for 25 years. How do I weave all that in and show up as myself? Some ways that you can look at this is one thing that I like to challenge people to do is what would you like people to say about you when you leave? How would you like them to describe you? Would you like them to say you are warm, you have a good sense of humor, you're wise, you are easy to be with, what are those words? I'm sure you all have experienced that moment when someone says, oh, so-and-so told me you were blah, and your heart sings because you felt so seen. Use those words and that languaging in your marketing about how you want to be seen. I let people know that humor is going to show up in our session because I can't not crack a joke at certain moments. And if that's not what someone wants, then they should not be coming to see me. If they're like, I am anti-humor, then they should, go knock on someone else's door. So, and to me, that is a way of connecting. And so I make sure that that is in my marketing materials. When I was working with parents, that would be in my marketing materials, things like that. So how do you want people to talk about you when you are not there is one way to sort of look at that. And if you're stuck on that, if you're a spiritual director, ask some of your clients, how do they experience you? What languaging would they use to describe you? If you're not a spiritual director, if you do other sorts of ministries, ask other Chi-sters how they would describe, Chi peeps, how they would describe you. Ask them what their experiences of you, because sometimes we don't see ourselves as others see us. And that languaging can be so helpful. And then, as I was saying before, bring your personality. What is your process? What was your professional life before, if you had one? What do you bring that no one else brings? And what makes you different? It is true that some people will speak to 4 other spiritual directors before they choose to work with you, or they'll speak to 4 other ministers before choosing you to do their wedding. So what makes you different than others? And make sure you can and don't be shy in lifting that up and celebrating that, because that's who you are. What a gift that is. I find that it's important to have a niche and to know who your ideal client is. I find this is helpful for a couple of reasons. Your niche is there a group that you feel called to work with? This is my cat in a niche, because I always get niche and niche all clobbered up. So is there a group that you feel called to work with? And what makes you the right person to work with that group? So if you are a parent and you want to work with other parents, if that's where the call feels right to you, what is it about your parenting that makes you the right person to work with that group? Where your kids, I had a big, my practice in the past was working with parents whose kids were on an alternative path, because my 3 kids all took different paths through school. So lifting that up without hijacking their story was how I was able to reach people. It's important to make sure your niche is sustainable. If your niche is, I want to work desperately with left-handed people who wear gray shoes on Tuesdays and black shoes on Fridays, you might not be able to build a practice out of that. So make sure that your group really has a potential, that there's enough people in that. And if not, how do you expand that a little bit? How do you expand it to include more? Maybe you'll work with left and right-handed people, and you've really quadrupled your client possibility. And then the reason I think it's important to have a niche is that if someone's looking at your website, it helps them to find themselves in your words. You can be a generalist, but it is harder to make language for people to find you find themselves in your marketing. People want to be able to find themselves. One of the most interesting things I think about marketing is that nobody really wants something completely new. They like things that they have heard of before. So making it completely new can be disorienting, and then they have to figure out if that's what they want before they choose if they want you. So finding languaging where people can find themselves in that is really important. I know I'm saying a lot of things, but we'll have questions. So your ideal client, I find this really helpful in marketing material, because what are their characteristics? What are their restraints? How will they be limited when they come to you? Will they feel shut down because of work stress? Will they feel lonely because of transitions, of empty nesting? Will they feel detached because they're not connected spiritually? What will their restraints be? How will you help them expand out of that? All of your material should be geared with a focused vision. I have like a couple people in my mind. So when I'm writing any material, I have them in my mind. And occasionally they have called when they've later on and come to me, and I'm like, I did it. I totally nailed it. But it is a way to focus your marketing. If you have that person in your mind and you're writing as if you are fishing for them, your marketing should hold that vision of who you want to attract. So I find an ideal client idea as a great way to sort of focus my languaging. Ways to market. This we could discuss for probably a year, but there are so many ways to market: where, how, and when. And I'm just going to share a little bit about this briefly on how to market. That you want to build a practice that plays to your strengths. If you cannot stand speaking in front of a group, if you don't feel like that you show up as yourself in that, if you have a lot of anxiety around it, or you just don't like it, then don't sign up to speak in front of groups. Figure out how you can have one-on-one conversations with people. Maybe it is a walking thing. Maybe you have people go on walks. Maybe you set up someplace where you can do individual one-on-one conversations somehow. But really find ways to build a practice that plays to your strength, not to someone's other strengths. The whole shoulding thing of like, you should do this, you should just go get a speaking gig here. If that's not your thing, then just put that aside, say thank you, and figure out what is your best way. Create marketing that will build your practice. You're only here to build your practice, not somebody else's practice, and not the grand idea of what your practice should look like. So it's really helpful to take a bit before and figure out, what does success look like for you? Does it look like 10 clients? Does it look like 30 clients? Does it look like performing a wedding 10 times a year? Or what is that? And then how are you going to build for that? How long do you think that will take you? And then I would recommend to add some time to that, because we tend to sabotage ourselves by saying, I want to have 10 clients by January. And life goes, in this work, I find things go much slower than we want them to. It is unfortunate, but it is the way of it. People come to this work slowly. I have 5 people who I've done intro sessions with, and I'm waiting to hear, and we are on like month 3. They often will come much later. It is having a patience for the divine to guide this marketing is also really important in this. And so, yeah, again, do marketing that plays to your strengths, not to the idea of what marketing should be. And I feel very strongly about this. If you can't stand working on Zoom or online, then build a practice that doesn't require that. However that looks for you. This is just a list of different places one could market. I do want to sort of go through, I'll go through some of these, but the idea of warm leads versus cold marketing. I find that what I often do is I keep a list of everybody who I know. You know, what ministers do I know? What therapists do I know? Who are my friends who might be connected to people? I honestly keep a list on my phone of people who I can reach out to. And then I try to go have coffee with them or send them an email saying what I'm doing and asking for them for referrals. Those are your warm leads. Those are your best leads. And the important thing about warm leads is not to just reach out to them once. You often, I find it's best when I have sort of a cycle of reaching out to them, because they are going to refer people to the last person in their mind. So if I'm reaching out to a minister, and they love me, I love them, we have a great relationship. But if they're talking to another spiritual director 2 months from now and somebody comes for a referral, they might remember the one who they just talked to. So I do try to keep those warm leads nice and warm. But writing down a list of anybody who could partner with you in this is a really good way to start. Cold marketing would be more like putting stuff on social media, building a website where people who you may never have met before or heard of in any way would find you, or more anonymous ways, people that who you don't have any entree into is cold marketing. Also really important, because just because they don't know the minister on your warm lead list doesn't mean that you're not the right person to work with them. So, but it is important to keep those two, the difference between those two clear. Advertising, you can purchase it in social media, written material, web ads, direct networking, sort of like the warm leads, cold marketing ideas. Networking groups, you know, often what coaches do is join networking groups. There's no reason why spiritual directors and other ministers can't also. I do notice that this work is becoming more part of the mainstream. So I think it's a rich time for this. Social media, I will say, for social media, there are so many options, as we all know. It's important to do that which you know. So if you've never used TikTok, I don't recommend just going right ahead and marketing on TikTok. I would recommend hanging out on TikTok for a few months, get the sense of the rhythm, the flow, what it looks like, so that you don't look like totally out of sorts for it. But absolutely, wherever you think your people might be is where you want to market. My people are usually women in their late 50s and 60s. They're not really on TikTok, so they are mostly on Facebook. So I don't even pay attention to TikTok. Some of you may be like, I don't know anything about social media. That's fine. Find other ways to go. And I would also be just not to get wrapped up into the whole viral world of I'm going to get viral on this. Those people work incredibly hard to get viral. And if you want to do that, I'm fully all there for you. But not to think you're just going to post something and it will be viral, because it's just a little misleading. It's a little bit like playing Little League baseball and getting onto the professional team. You know, it's a luck and a skill and a whole lot of work. Small groups, teaching, writing, blogging, direct mail. If you want to go old school, I don't see any reason why you couldn't do direct mail. I think it'd be fun if we all did a little more direct mail in life. Direct email, public speaking, getting published somewhere, podcasting, if that's your thing, and teaching in congregations and spiritual communities, community education centers, creating your own classes, all those sorts of things. So all of those are options for what you can do. There's really no limit. But again, what works for you? Where are you connected in? And how do people you're trying to reach respond to you? So I do a lot of direct email. I do like email out to a few hundred people once a week or once every other week. And that seems to really work for me. But that's because of who I draw in and who's on my list. And that's my way of that works for me, but doesn't mean it's going to be the best for you. So I urge you to really be open to what might be the right way for you. And then, so just a little formulaic way of sort of weaving in who you are with what you do. You can use this formula of discover how you whatever so you can whatever and feel whatever. So those would be filling in who your niche is, who your ideal client is. So for example, I will often say that I work with those who are spiritual but not religious or non-religious, and I help them develop language to connect to their own spiritual life and feel more connected to the divine. So when I talk to people about working with people who are non-religious and finding language, because those who are unchurched often don't feel access to that, that gives them an idea of how that could work for them. Highlight what you actually do in the modality of spiritual direction or ministry in that. So I work a lot with languaging because that's a place that feels really comfortable to me. So I make sure that that's something that I bring into my quick description of what I do when people ask. And then continuously regroup and considering based on the feedback you're getting what's working for you and what's not working for you. If nobody has said anything about your post on Facebook, then don't put a whole lot of energy into that. Doesn't mean don't keep posting, but just look at where people are responding to you. If somebody new comes to you, ask them how they heard about you. If they say, oh, I really loved your website, then your website's looking good. There was a point where I was getting a lot of great feedback on my website, so I didn't touch that website for a very long time because why break it if it's working? And then if you're not getting feedback, consider tweaking it. The thing I will say about websites is that in this day and time, websites are the way people make sure that you really exist. So websites are really important. They are a way that people find, as I said, find themselves in what your work is and find out more about you. And people will go to your website. If you don't have a website or your website looks, really not good. I don't have any other words for that right now, but it shows. So that is a place that I would put my first energy is in developing a website because that's how we validate people now. And it's a way of people knowing more about you. And I urge you in this work, because of our field, is to find ways for ongoing support. Whether you're having a friend who's also doing this work, be mutual support for you. If you join a group, whatever it is, I have found for me, it's usually not people in my personal life who understand this work. It's a different sort of thing. And so I think finding people who are doing work in the ministry spiritual field is really important. But doing this alone, marketing can be lonely and scary work. So not having anybody who you can talk to who said, I did it, I hit send on that email. Those are exhausting moments. So have somebody who you can celebrate with, have somebody who can handle you in despair, have somebody who can walk with you in this journey, because you need to get the word out about the gifts you're bringing to the world, and doing it alone is too much for any of us to handle. I've tried it, just in case you're wondering, and it really stinks to do it alone. You just, can find yourself in some dark corner. So I urge you really, get 2 or 3 of your friends together and say, we're going to support each other on this. Or you can also join my class or other classes like that. There's a lot of coaching type classes that you could find, coaching groups that would be just similar in style, lots of ways, but I really urge you to find somebody to go through this with. So that's my quick, everything you need to know about marketing in 20 minutes spiel. So I'd love to hear, I'm sure there's questions and you all have different things going on. So let's open it to some questions about what you might have.
Yeah, and I think just unmute yourselves and go ahead and speak, Susie, if that's okay. If we get all kinds of people talking over each other, we'll do something. Just go ahead and ask your question.
I have one. So as somebody new coming in to this, how do you put a value on your gifts, and how do you feel confident in expressing that to your possible clients?
Mhm. I use, it's a really good question, because I think when I was starting out, that was a really hard thing, because my inner critic got real loud about that stuff of like, you have no right to talk to anybody about their spiritual life. What are you thinking here? But it was really taking in feedback I was getting from people who I was working with in my practicum part and then beyond, my early clients, and really taking that in as truth and not letting my inner critic circumvent that. And then when I took a 2-year sabbatical, and then I came back and redid my website, and I was reading all the testimonials that I had clients write, and I was like, oh my gosh, look at what I've done for people. So really letting that in, which is not something that we culturally do well, but I urge you in this work to not deflect when people see you. Really let it in deeply and be like, oh, I am showing up as this. In class time, when you're in class sessions with people, when they reflect how they see you, whew, just let that in and hold that. And then take that as truth and not that. Does that answer that a little bit? Okay, great.
Can I tag on to that? How
Yeah.
do you choose numbers, whether it's how much you charge for a wedding, a memorial
Oh, yeah.
service, a spiritual direction session, coaching, class, whatever, speaking fee?
It's always an interesting part, I think. What I always advise people, I use a sliding scale because that's part of my own value system, is to have people be able to come in at different levels. But I really sit with the lower amount, and I make sure I'm absolutely fine receiving the lower amount, so that if someone writes a check for that lower amount, when we used to get checks in person, I would never be like, what? Like, I had to feel really comfortable with the lower amount. And I had to feel comfortable with the higher amount too. I had to feel like I wasn't even the higher amount is a little awkward to state sometimes, because I do feel like there is for me on the higher amount, there's more of a value of what do I feel like this is really, what do I feel like people should pay for this? I don't want to say worth, because it's not about worth, but it's about, sure, I could put 500 and somebody might do that, but I don't feel like that's appropriate. So what is it about assessing my sense of need and desire and comfort is really important for me in pricing. And I think that's true for any sort of ministry piece of, if you're doing a wedding, and I only go to weddings because it's sort of a minister role and a one transaction thing, but I know we work in this field in so many different ways. But what is that amount that would make your heart feel like you have done good, worthy work, and you've been paid appropriately for this? Appropriate might be a good word, because it is a self-centered word. I do, you can go down a rabbit hole of looking at what everybody else in your area charges. Now, since a lot of us are doing this on Zoom, I don't know how you would weigh that with what somebody in a lower cost of living place does versus me in the Bay Area. So I think really knowing what feels right to yourself is good. Sometimes I look at what therapy costs are, and then I'm like, well, I don't want, that sounds like too much money. You know, I think therapy is now like $250 or something, and that sounds like too much to me. That feels like too much, even though I guess I could charge that, but I don't. Did that answer that? I have a lot to say about everything. I can go on.
Thank you. No, it's good. Helpful.
Sure, yeah.
Can I throw something in there? Hi, everybody.
Please.
Hi, Susie. Thank you for all this great information. I love that you called us cheesters. That's hilarious. I love that. I'm a cheester.
Excellent, excellent.
Yeah, and I really, really wanted to come specifically to the ChI talk today. So quick question about etiquette when trying to build a client base. So I've been hired to teach a class at the adult school on community circles, community circle
Nice.
facilitation. I'm sure friendly audience, local little adult school. But I want the students that I have in those classes, I want to try to keep in contact with afterwards. So the etiquette is sort of like, could I hand out business cards on the last night and say, hey, this is what I'm doing, keep in touch, or a sign-in sheet, or do you have suggestions or even language for how to kind of continue to build a consumer or customer client base as I'm moving through these little hired jobs?
And those are such great avenues to build that list, right? So there's a few ways, and I think you said quite a few of them. Handing out a card, I think it is better if you can get their contact info, because then you can be in contact with them. You could do either a follow-up with them, or you can do an email blast out to as your list grows. But then you have more control of being in touch with them, because often with cards, people may be like, oh, Marion was awesome, loved, fantastic. And then you just kind of go out of their mind. So part of our job is to stay in people's peripheral vision, right? So you want to be able to send them an email, whether or not they open, I swear, whether or not they open the email doesn't matter. They just need to see your name there to be reminded of your gifts. So I think if it's possible to get their contact info, that's great. And if you have them sign something, it can be considered an opt-in for email, because when you're doing email, sending out emails, you need to have them opt in. So that would be a way that they opt in. So that works. But that's a great question. Yeah.
Thanks, Susie, for this. It's
Yeah.
great. I wanted to ask about how to create a website.
There's a few different ways. I use two. I use Wix and GoDaddy. I don't like GoDaddy because of their politics. But I've been using them for so long that I can't quite figure out how to extract myself without major upheaval. And Wix, I really like. It's very drag and drop to build a website, wix.com. I find their prices quite reasonable. WordPress has 1,000,001 different templates. I find it, if anybody else has different experience, please chime in, because these are the ones I've had experience with. But I find WordPress to be a little bit more complicated, and I find I don't like to put all my energy into wrestling a website into existence. That just not where I want to put my efforts. So Wix is my favorite. Someone just said they use Wix. Anybody else use something? No. But there, you can also just Google like website services. There's so many easy to do. Find a template that works for you and customize it. I recommend not to Squarespace, Google Sites. Oh, I never even heard of that. Just find something that has a template that resonates with you, that you're like, no, that's how I want people to see me. Find something that speaks to the image that you want to put out. You can change images on any of these website things. It's great to have a picture of yourself. That brings people a lot of comfort and validation that you're real. And having some sort of graphic and colors that sort of reflect you are good.
What if you're just really, I know what I'm good at and I'm not good at website stuff? I mean, is it possible to hire somebody to build you just a really simple one, or can you
Absolutely.
like through Squarespace or something?
Absolutely. And I know, what is it now? Is it Fiverr that does that? It used to be Guru. Am I right on that? Bill, you're nodding your head. Where you could hire someone to do that on just a one-time thing, or if you have friends who can do it, you can barter with them or pay them, or however that works. Yeah, all of that's good. You don't need to master technology. That's not, unless you love it, That's not what we're here for in this world. So use your energies wisely to do what we're here for. Fiverr and Upwork. There you go. Perfect.
Fiverr has a commercial out where Martha Stewart is the intern who brings coffee. So I think that Fiverr must be the way that people are doing that right now.
I'm a little worried about that. Martha Stewart's doing that now.
Well, no, okay. But yeah,
What
no,
else?
I love technology, but I don't want to pay. I want to pay somebody to do my website. I'm going to have to do the real deal because it's
And I like to do my own because I like to tweak it all the time. That's the other thing I'll say about websites is feel free to don't be like, well, I already put it on my website. Just go change your website. Nobody's going to remember. We're all online way too much now. So if you're feeling like I want to add something or something, and on that, as you're starting out, don't try to do too much at once. I tried to do too much at once when I was first starting out, doing individual and groups and this group and that group and the other thing. And then when people have too many options, they just don't do anything. So if you have too many niches that you're working with or too many options that people can do on your website, they're going to just click out. So the simpler you can keep it, the better. Casey?
I'm wondering how important it is to have a website. I have as many clients and work things I'm doing as I want. And I'm aware people look me up and I don't have a website. And I'm just wondering how important would it be to create one?
Well, that's an interesting problem. So, and do you usually get people word of mouth and you don't need to? And are people saying I look for you on the web and they're feeling a little unsettled by you not being on the web?
Oh, I've heard it a couple times, not a lot.
So, I mean, again, doing what works for you, it sounds like you've got a good thing going. So I wouldn't put it at the top of your to-do list, but it could be that you want to at some point, but if that's not a way that you're finding you don't need that to get everything that you need, then I would not be putting a ton of effort in that and just sort of tell people, oh yeah, someday you're okay. Everybody will be okay.
Someday.
They're going to be okay. I'm finding you and your beauty in other ways because you offer so much. Yeah.
Thank you, Susie.
I'm not going to comment on every question, I promise, but I've seen some people use LinkedIn like that, Casey, where, because when you do a search for somebody's name, their LinkedIn profile will come up and you could have a little bit of contact, a little bit of, a picture, but it's less, intense.
Yeah. And then we'll be able to sell.
Yeah.
And Facebook also, if you could do just a Facebook community business page kind of thing too. LinkedIn is turning out to be a good place to be on for the spiritual world. So I haven't jumped all the way in yet, but I'm looking forward to doing that soon.
Susie, thank you. I have a question. I spent last fall and then January and February writing and creating a new trauma-informed 12-step program that is interfaith or spiritual but not religious for moral injury and recovery and mental health, sort of an all-encompassing program that was born out of groups that I was leading in the hospital for our inpatient recovery program. I'm not in a position right now that I have been able to continue on a different site leading those spirituality groups, and I really miss it. And now that I've put it into a book form and have, little prayer cards and things that go along with it, I reached out to Community Ed where I live, and they felt that it wasn't quite what they were looking for as far as leading groups for people that were suffering in all of these different ways. And so I'm kind of at a loss as far as how to market. Like, I know it's a very particular thing, but it's very
Right.
broadly written. So I don't know if you have any advice or insight on next steps as far as how to move this out into the world. It's on Amazon, it's available. I've sold a handful, but that's without anything. But I would like to kick it out into the universe faster than it's happening.
And who would be your clientele in engaging with that?
Like Betty Ford, or I don't know, places
Like the
that,
Betty Ford Center or Betty Ford the person?
no, like the center.
Like a center. Okay.
Places that offer groups for recovery was my initial
Right.
thinking, and I get overwhelmed just thinking about that because it's an
Yeah.
antiquated model and there's a ton of money thrown to them. So
Right. And sounds like such a beautiful offering to those communities who you can get to open up to it. So how do you get to them? And have you had any luck locally? You're in Castro Valley, right? And getting to any
yeah,
of those?
I haven't tried. I've been working full time
Yeah.
basically as a per diem chaplain on 4 different sites. And yeah, and so I haven't put in a lot of effort or a lot of time other than reaching out to the community ed and having that be rejected. So I'm looking for other avenues.
I'm curious about LinkedIn because there would be groups that you could affiliate with in LinkedIn and then do regular posting in those groups. That would be field specific. To me, that might be the lowest effort to sort of explore and see if there's any response there. Because I think I can see where it would be so overwhelming to be like, hello, Betty Ford, can you, you know?
I wouldn't be against it. I mean, I have
Yeah.
Dr. Rita Nakashima Brock wrote the words for the back of the book. Like, I'm on her radar now. So that's exciting.
Right. And it seems like it almost needs like a book tour kind of thing, but who has time to, and is there an agent or any publicity group that would take it on? It's
Maybe,
self-published? Yeah,
but
yeah.
that's another thing to have
Another
to
thing.
go out and find an agent now.
Carrie, do you have any thoughts on that? I'm thinking LinkedIn is where I would start as a low effort.
I'll touch base with you privately then afterwards, because we do have one of our clergy is working with an agent, just had a book come out. But yeah, I think LinkedIn is a great idea. And also, have I missed it, Jen? Have you put it out to the ChI world?
No.
I think we have a couple people. Oh, look at that.
But yeah, I mean,
work and treatment.
I have all the things, all the things ready
Right.
to
So
go.
you're all ready to go. Yeah. But also working more than full time. So it's hard to
Right.
low effort. So you want low effort, high reward is what we're looking for here.
April says SDI, Spiritual Directors International.
Oh yeah.
I don't know how you do that, but yeah, you can buy space actually in their publications. Okay, expensive. Yeah. Thank you, April. Good idea.
Thank you.
I really want to solve this for you, but but hopefully those might be helpful. I'm going to stew on it a bit though, and see if I can come up with anything else. Yeah.
Can you share your contact info with us so that I can reach out to you?
Yeah.
Later?
Are you going to share that, Carrie, or?
I have, yes, I will share, Susie, if you don't mind, Susie, I'd like to share your Facebook and your website and your email.
Sure.
And then when this video recording comes out, we'll, if it's okay with you, Susie, include the PowerPoint and all of these references too. So you'll have, but yeah. I mean,
absolutely. Yeah.
But I will do that.
Yeah, I'd love to
Okay.
see that out in the world, easily found.
Right. Right. Okay, who else? Anybody else? It doesn't have to be such big, like I wrote a book and it's going to heal the world.
Right.
Like, we can have littler questions.
I have another question.
Okay.
I'm just curious if you have tried any like creative guerrilla marketing tactics and if they've been fruitful for you.
I have not, but now since you bring it up, do you have thoughts on that of what you've been tempted to try?
As some of you know, I've written several books, and there's, this idea of reverse stealing, where you go and you place your book in a known bookstore and then create all kinds of havoc when it doesn't show up in the book system, and then it gets put in the book system. But I don't know. I've never tried that or.
I know. Now since you're bringing that up, it does feel fun. I think part of me always felt like it was so counter to spiritual work, but now the world has changed, and now the rules feel different. So, yeah, I have not though, but I'm going to try some. I don't know what I'll try. Has anybody else had any experience with that or tried anything?
I can throw an idea in there. I was ordained only a couple years ago. It feels like yesterday, but I live in a small town in the Bay Area. We have the big cities and then a small town. Jen, you and I are neighbors, Castro Valley. And so I had a colleague suggest that I join the chamber, which is business owners. There's some of the big churches are on there, but it was an interesting way to just network, right? And to get on the list that people look for stuff and go to the little mixers. And so it's like ground level meeting your neighbors type work, but it was helpful because then people, even if they were confused, would say, oh, do you have your own church? Like who are you? What do you do? So it was a good conversation starter in an audience that's different than what I do, but related because it's a small business. So that was fun. I renew my little membership every year.
Oh, good.
April asks,
and I know coaches.
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I know coaches have been showing up to those for a little while, for many years.
I think a wedding practice too, a memorial practice would be welcome there too.
Yeah.
April asks about putting cards at a holistic medicine therapy office or food co-ops or market at a farmer's market. Set up a table at a farmer's market.
I have done that with not much success, but I have done that. I've done, the other thing I've done is gone to, like parenting, when they have those sort of fairs for parents, and then I do a little raffle and staff a table. But again, I made good contacts with people and it felt like a good moment, but it didn't translate into clients. So, but part of it is playing the long game, right? Of which I think you were sort of speaking to, Marion, of sort of showing up and getting your name out there, because at some point you might meet the right person, but to not equate people signing up with you as the success measure on that, because it usually won't be a winning game on that.
I'm noticing our time is coming to an end. But I want to take a chance. I want to say two things. Well, thank you everybody for coming. But Susie, I want to ask two more specific things of you. And I said I wouldn't talk, but here I am. You have done some paid marketing on Facebook. So I'm wondering if you could just speak like 2 lines to that. And then also tell us a little bit more about what you have offered to this community, what your offerings are.
Yep. So I have done paid marketing in Facebook and Instagram, and people have seen my stuff and clicked through to my website, and none of that has turned into clients yet. But it is, I don't do much. I do like $40 at a time. And some days I just got to say, I need that little ego boost of somebody sees me. So, and I do believe someday those will turn back into clients. I took a 2-year sabbatical, so I'm sort of rebuilding my practice now. So it's been a little bit of a labor in doing that. So I've had to go through all those feelings of, oh, nobody sees me. And then I do that and people see me and it feels good. And I do think it's getting me in front of people who would not see me in any other way. I do have a sort of calendar of posting that I do sometimes of inspirational stuff and generic, this is what I do kind of things. And then my personal email blast I put into my social media. So that's the way that shows up. Your second question of what I'm offering is this one's going to be 6 sessions over 12 weeks starting October 9th of a marketing coaching group where everybody will sort of bring what they're working on and have a point to check in about what they want to do, and then coming back and if they did do it or what walls they hit. I've done this in the past and I find it's just so helpful to be like, I know I said I was going to call 5 people, but I got scared and couldn't, and then sort of talking through what that is and then trying again. So a very forgiving but encouraging environment to make these efforts into getting our gifts out into the world. So it's 6 sessions, October 9th to December 18th. If you can't make one of those, that's fine. Just come as you can. I'm hoping this will be an ongoing thing, so it would renew later on. I'm offering it currently on Wednesday afternoons Pacific time, evenings on the East Coast. If that time doesn't work, let me know, because if I open up a second group, I can make it more adjustable to what you might need. But it's been really helpful to those in the past of doing this to sort of be able to have this ongoing support. So yeah, that's what I'm offering. Would love to see you there if it speaks to you at this time or in the future. I'll always advertise at ChI. So yeah.
All right, friends, I want to thank you so much for coming today. I'll stay on for a few minutes. If anybody's got any questions about ChI or anything else, maybe Susie can stay on a minute too, but
yeah,
just know.
So good to see you all. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Susie.
Thank you, Susie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Thanks so much.
absolutely.
An email will show up in just a couple days for you all.